Over the last year, I have been combining various scientifically backed practices into routines. I made a scientifically perfect morning routine, a scientifically perfect night routine, and most recently a scientifically perfect daily routine. And whilst there is obviously no scientifically perfect routine for everyone, there was one major issue with the scientifically perfect routine that I created, and that was that it was based on the hormonal cycle of men. Something that's not talked about a lot in our culture, in our society, is that men have a 24-hour hormonal cycle, but women have a 28-day cycle, babe. Hormonally speaking, men experience the same thing every single day. Now, women, on the other hand, experience slightly different hormones every single day for 28 days. This impacts everything you do, from the way you think, feel, eat, sleep, and even exercise, which means that routines that reset every 24 hours might work fine for 4 of those 28 days, but you are grasping at straws, fighting for your life the other 24. But if that's the case, why don't more routines consider this? Why didn't I consider this? Well, that's a great question. Great question. When I make my scientifically perfect routine videos, I'm trying to appeal to the widest audience possible. Sometimes this means that I include things that don't always have as many benefits for one sex as the others. For example, I included intermittent fasting in some of my routine videos, but there is not nearly as much evidence to suggest that intermittent fasting has as many health benefits for women as it does for men. Not to mention the fact that it's actually pretty dangerous for you to do if you're menstruating. So don't do that, babe. Don't eat food on your period, please. Another thing is cold exposure therapy, like a cold shower or ice baths. There's masses of evidence online suggesting it's really good for you, but huge numbers of those studies tested only on male participants. Now, whilst I try and use research in my videos that had a more diverse range of demographics in their participants, such as diversities in gender and age, sometimes the data just isn't there. Or sometimes the data is buried under masses and masses of evidence where the studies tested on only one type of participant. I am about to go on a quite lengthy side tangent, so if you're just here for the routine, there's a timestamp, you can just skip to it. But this part I do think is really interesting, so it's worth a listen if you've got the time. Little side note is that I am going to be primarily referring to women in this video, but I want to make it clear that I am not ignoring alpha people who do not identify as women, our menopausal divas who no longer run on the same rhythm, and those who for whatever reason have never had a period or just don't run on the same hormonal cycles, but are still very much women. In the words of Troy Bolton, we're all in this together. So much of what we have come to know as common sense biology, medicine, or psychology is based on research done entirely by men on men. A big reason for this is because when we originally started testing health and fitness related practices within controlled academic environments, women were barred entry from being able to study. Yeah, women did not have very good rights for a while there. Or now. Lots of women don't have rights now, actually. But this meant for a long time, women could not be on the researcher side of this research. And for a variety of different socioeconomic reasons, the male researchers were primarily focused on testing male participants. So women were excluded on both sides of the fence. This means a lot of the conclusions from the very first studies in fields of psychology, medicine, and biology in general are based on kind of half of a story. There was massive gender bias in their work, but because their work at the time was so pioneering, it became the foundation on which we built everything else. And you, like many of these early pioneers, might say, well, it can't really be that big of a difference, can it really? Surely there are no long-lasting implications because of this. What if I told you basically everything about the way that society is built is actually because of this? Yeah, unfortunately, most of what we assume to be common sense is actually based on these studies that were done on men. Yeah. Would you like some examples? I'll pluck a few examples out the air. Needing 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night based on men. Yes, it is. Women actually need 10 to 20 minutes more than their male counterparts. So you could have had a lie-in if you just tested on women as well. The average temperature in most office buildings, Yep, that one's based on men too. The average temperature of most office buildings is based on the resting metabolic rate of men. This means that the average office building is actually several degrees too cold for most women and AFAB people, which, to be honest, even the capitalists should care about, because studies have shown that uncomfortable working environments lowers productivity. Quick, someone tell the capitalists that equality and diversity actually makes them more money. Maybe then they'll give a shit about DEI. Now I'm making jokes, a silly little giggle, haha, tee hee, but you might be thinking, babe, just sleep a bit more and put a jumper on. These are not that serious. But actually, these are like the smallest issues caused by what many refer to as the gender data gap. For example, did you know that women are 47% more likely to be seriously injured in a car accident? This is because until fairly recently, crash dummies for road accident safety tests done by automotive companies were based on the average male body, meaning things like seatbelt heights and other safety features in cars don't protect women the way they protect men. You ever taken a medicine in your life ever? You ever pulled out that piece of paper that came with it that has an extensive list of side effects? For a long time, that list of side effects was generated by studies done only on men. So there was no research into how certain medicines might impact women and AFAB people, which when you think about it is a little bit insane. Imagine just putting out a medicine on the market, not knowing how it might impact about 50% of its potential users. Diabolical. In fact, the entire structure of society, the 9 to 5 working environment, is literally based on the hormonal cycles of men. The normalization of using men as the standard for research and the basis of how our society actually functions can have serious and deadly consequences for literally everyone else. Everything I've mentioned so far is a statistical fact. I've not even gotten into the socio-economic effects of the normalization of men as the standard. So much of what we know about health and fitness comes from studies that either tested on men or studies that have not researched enough into how making slight differences to certain behaviors, routines, and practices could better serve the health benefits and interests of women and AFAB people. So I'm making this one to show that I at least tried. If you would like to know more about the gender data gap, I really recommend Invisible Women: Exposing Data Bias in a World Designed for Men by Caroline Criado Perez. This book also goes into the intersectionality of the gender data gap, talking about how when we do have data on women, it generally is on white women, which can massively affect things like the type of medical care that women of color get when they go into hospitals. It's a really interesting book and I really recommend you give it a read. I will leave a link in the comments down below. So how do we get around this? If daily routines are done on daily cycles, which happen to be 24 hours, which also happen to be the hormonal cycle of men, how do we get a good routine for women? And I've got the answer for you, babe. It's a 28-day routine. We need to learn how to work with our daily cycle to support our daily hormonal changes. If we do this, and we work on the schedule of our natural circadian rhythm instead of trying to impose an external rhythm that does not work for it, we can have better results, better mood stability, and healthier, happier bodies. To be completely transparent, more recent studies have found that cycle lengths mostly range between 21 and 35 days, which is all perfectly normal. But for the sake of statistics in this video, we're just gonna stick to 28 because it's a happy medium, babe. We're in the middle. To plan a 28-day routine, you need to know each stage of the cycle, what to expect from each phase, and what could enhance or benefit you within each one. Each cycle has 4 phases: the follicular phase, the ovulation phase, the luteal phase, and menstruation. Some people like to envision each stage of the cycle as a season, with spring being your follicular phase, summer being your ovulation, autumn for your luteal phase, and winter being menstruation. From this point on, when I talk about hormones, I'm mainly going to be referring to estrogen and progesterone, with a little bit of testosterone sprinkled in. The girlies have that too, yes they do. All of these hormones are regulated by the brain, more specifically by the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus. Estrogen is one of the main female sex hormones. It's produced in the ovaries, the adrenal glands, and in the fat cells. Estrogen is most famously known for stimulating breast growth when you go through puberty. Some of us were blessed in that area more than others. Everything in this routine is an accumulation of various scientific research and studies I found talking about what is most beneficial at each given stage of your cycle and what your hormonal needs are within that phase. However, it is important to remember that everything in this video should just serve you as a guideline on where to start. If something doesn't feel right for you, it's not fitting you, cut it out. Get rid of it. I've created a base routine that sets out a guideline for things that should work pretty consistently for you, regardless of whichever stage of your cycle you're in. During each stage of the cycle, I will give an overview of how that phase impacts you, and then I will highlight the specific changes we will make to this basic routine in order to accommodate the hormonal shift. The areas that I focused on specifically for this video are sleep, diet, exercise, productivity, and self-care. Everything on this list has been scientifically backed by studies that tested on females. Many of them are things that you will recognize from my previous scientifically perfect routines, so if you would like to know more about how and why these specific things are good for you, I would recommend watching those videos. Sound good? Excellent. Let's get into it. Menstruation is about 3 to 7 days, depending on the person, and it's where your endometrial lining sheds. This is the phase where hormonally you will want to rest and will perhaps be more introverted than usual. So to accommodate that shift, here is the adjusted daily routine for your menstruation phase. This phase is all about self-care, rest, and being gentle with yourself and your body. This means we are increasing the sleep duration as well as upping our mindfulness and meditation practices, doing them in the mornings and the evenings to improve our mental and physical health. And that's why I use Headspace, the sponsor of this part of today's video. Whilst I know that meditation and mindfulness have been shown to reduce stress and anxiety in many people, if I'm being completely transparent, which you know, I do try to be on this channel, I have always struggled to stay engaged and present when I do mindfulness or meditation. My mind wanders, I start thinking about other things, and to be honest, I just end up feeling like I'm wasting my time and getting more stressed out. So I figured I was doing something wrong, but that's why for this video, I started using Headspace. Headspace is a mindful meditation app that focuses on guiding you towards a healthier and happier every day. They have a range of simple and short eyes open practices to 20-minute eyes closed deep meditations. Because of the variety of different practices that Headspace offers, as well as the fact that so many of them have engaging audio or visuals, the minute I started using Headspace, I understood why everyone kept harping on about how good mindfulness and meditation is. It is kind of incredible to me how integrating even 5 minutes of focused, dedicated mindfulness using Headspace in the morning completely changed my perception of the day. I felt more calm and centered than I have in a long time. And because of how accessible and flexible the app is, I've even found myself reaching for their 3-minute breathing exercises whenever I've started to feel overwhelmed or can sense a premenstrual crash out coming on. Just a nice breathing exercise instead. And you know what? It worked. And that is no small task. So everyone say thank you, Headspace, for saving me from myself. Just 10 days of Headspace is proven to reduce stress and increase happiness. And by using my link in the description or by scanning the QR code on the screen now, you can try it out completely for free for 60 days. I can guarantee that almost all of you watching this have not taken a single minute to focus on yourself today, so I just want you to have that. So go and do a 3-minute breathing exercise, center yourself, and feel better, because honestly, I want the girls to feel good in 2025, okay? Share your tips for feeling better in 2025 in the comments down below. This is a collaborative space. My contribution to this is that you should download Headspace. You're welcome. Yeah, your turn. Diet. During this phase, you want to replenish vitamins that you are lacking due to bleeding. So foods rich in iron, magnesium, omega-3, vitamin C, and zinc are your go-to. This is harder to drink than a shot of alcohol, I reckon. But unlike alcohol, I usually don't regret having this. I say this like I drink. I haven't drank in a very long time. Some studies have shown that magnesium-rich foods can help to reduce cramps and support relaxation. Iron-rich foods are also important to replenish blood loss. Here is a list of foods to prioritize during this period, and also some to avoid if you can. Listen, I respect science as much as the next woman, but no refined sugar on your period? It's ambitious to say the least, so Diva, if you can't do all of that, don't worry about it. Now, whilst exercising on your period does not sound super fun, it is actually kind of important, turns out. When it comes to exercise on your period, pretty much all the advice online and from anyone you speak to says the same thing. Be gentle with yourself during this phase. Stretching and low impact workouts are going to be your ideal exercise for this week. Focus on stretching and breath work can also help to really reduce pain and stress, especially if you are experiencing cramps. This is because exercise releases endorphins, and endorphins can help you cope with stress and pain as a result of the fact that they are the happy hormone. During this phase, your hormonal levels are actually at their lowest, and some studies have shown that intense exercise during this period can actually result in fat storage rather than fat loss or muscle gain. So instead, prioritize walking, yoga, Pilates, and stretching. Your energy, focus, and productivity levels are at their lowest during menstruation. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that, you know. We all know it's terrible. During this phase, the levels of all hormones are low. There's a slight rise in estrogen and a slight dip in progesterone. So the best advice, don't fight it. Cut back on your work tasks if possible and give yourself time to rejuvenate. Self-care. Get lots of sleep and rest. Reduce your social commitments. That's right, hermit. Hide. Cuddle up on the sofa, babe, watch your favorite comfort show, and just take it easy. You are most likely to feel sleepy and introverted during this period, as I said, so just lean into it and get cozy. Here is a list of recommended activities to get self-care in. The biggest thing when you're menstruating is the increased need for rest. Sleep can be a killer during this phase, particularly if you have heavier periods. You might have low iron levels, which means you will feel more fatigued than anything else. It's really important during this phase to prioritize combating fatigue by getting more rest. Aim to have between 7 and 9 hours of sleep, and consider evening rituals like herbal tea or light stretching to improve your sleep quality. Most importantly, stop comfort scrolling on TikTok before bed. It is not good for you, diva. It is not good for you. Blue light, the type that comes from your phone, can result in melatonin suppression, with melatonin being the hormone that makes you sleepy. You don't want to be suppressing that at bedtime? This essentially happens because the blue light confuses your brain into thinking it's kind of like the daytime, but yeah, your circadian rhythm gets all kinds of whacked up, which means that not only is it harder to fall asleep, it's also harder to stay asleep. Something else to consider is not spending time hanging out in your room before bed. Scientifically, it's better for your brain just to associate your bed with sleep. Certain environments can trigger memories about what you did last time you were there. For example, you might associate the kitchen with food, and so when you go to the kitchen, you might get hungry. So what you want to inspire in your brain is going to your bed and feeling tired. And this should theoretically improve your sleep quality during the phase where you need it the most. Next up, we have the follicular phase. It usually lasts between 7 to 10 days. It links the end of the menstrual phase all the way through to ovulation. This is where your body is preparing an egg. During this phase, your energy levels will begin to rise, getting ready for ovulation. Here is your scientifically backed daily routine for your follicular phase. We are focusing on creativity in this phase to meet your rising energy levels. The routine's approach progressively moves from rest and recover to higher energy and creativity focused practices, be that in your self-care or at work. During this phase, we mainly want to focus on carbs, complex carbs, healthy fats, and oils. All of these are going to help rising estrogen and glycogen storage, especially for working and exercise. This is not, I need better knives, I think, guys. This is not good.
Rust on it.
I don't know, is there rust on this knife?
On the other side.
Please don't comment that my knives are really bad and that there's rust on my knives and that I need new knives. I know, but do you know how expensive knives are? The reason these knives are so terrible is because I paid £10 for them and they were set of 8. That's a good money for knife ratio, okay? Then I was like, okay, actually these knives are really bad. Oh, I'll use these temporarily before I get some new knives. It's been a full year. I just cannot believe how expensive knives are. Like, also this bread is exceptionally hard. It's so hard that my knife is just staying in the bread. Is rust good for you? It's like when you burn your toast and they're like, oh, a little bit of charcoal's good for you. So what, the same for rust? Don't know. Anyway, please like the video, please subscribe, pay for my knife fund. I feel like there are now more seeds on my cutting board than there are on the bread remaining. The boost in your hormones during this phase will give you more energy, and you might find that your appetite is smaller. But if you can, try to focus on the following foods. In terms of things that you should try to avoid in your diet during this phase, it's all the fun stuff. It is, yeah. It's quite unfortunate that. Exercise. As discussed, as estrogen levels rise and peak, you will have more energy. This is a good time to try higher intensity cardio like running, boxing, or HIIT, or even heavy resistance training. The increase in estrogen and testosterone during this phase of your cycle can make it easier to build muscle. This is where cardio and strength training routines will feel their best. Productivity. As I've said many times at this point, sharp rise in estrogen and progesterone during this phase, whilst testosterone stays at a steady level for almost the entire phase before rising towards the end. Because of your heightened energy and creativity, now's a good time to try and learn something new, and you may see an increase in your motivation and drive to succeed. So this means be proactive and prioritize creative tasks for this phase. Your mind during this phase is more up for difficult and complex tasks, so if you can, do a to-do list and start with the most complex one first. Self-care. During this phase, self-care looks a little bit different. For example, perhaps taking a new class would help you best fulfill that increased creative potential. I'm thinking dance class, I'm thinking art class, I'm thinking learning a language. There's so many things to do. Earlier on in the phase, you want to prioritize your resting still, so you want to be journaling, you want to be reading. And then towards the end of the phase, you got to get on that skincare, okay? You got to make the most of the hormonal rises that come in ovulation phase. You want your skin to be glowing. Get on the skincare now, darling. Sleep and hormones are super interlinked, and sleep quality can really vary throughout the cycle. Okay, I'm about to get very sciencey, so bear with me. And when I say me, I mean I'm going to read the words of someone much smarter than me. In this phase, the brain sends a signal that stimulates the secretion of follicle-stimulating hormones, which in turn stimulates follicles in the ovaries, the tiny little sacs with the eggs inside, to grow. Within the follicles in the ovaries, there are also cells called granulosa cells, and these secrete estrogen. As the follicles get bigger, levels of estrogen in your system rise, and estrogen has a positive effect on sleep patterns. So this is a good time to sleep, babe. However, because nothing is simple ever, estrogen is also an energizing hormone. So while it might be good when you're asleep, getting to sleep it's difficult. It's gonna be hard. Sorry. You cannot have it easy ever, actually. But sleep can actually be affected by many external factors like stress, anxiety, general health, the weather, and your relationships. So during this phase, while you're feeling more creative and energized, you might find it beneficial to start keeping a sleep diary. These can help you to spot patterns in your sleep and help you to identify things that could be causing worse sleeping habits. You gotta make the most of this good quality sleep whilst you can. And to do that, a lot of the time you need to identify the things that are inhibiting it. The main one is going to be that pesky blue light. So try not to doom scroll as a way to make yourself go to sleep, and don't watch YouTube before bed. Are you watching this before bed right now? I would tell you to get off, but actually I need the watch time. So keep watching this video, but then go to bed after this one. Okay. Ovulation, day 10 to 15. Our summer vibed ovulation phase will last you 3 to 4 days, which is actually heartbreaking because this is the best phase. Why is it the shortest? Why? For what reason? But to be honest, it might be a good thing, because ovulation phase, things get a little bit crazy, girls. Get a little bit crazy. I don't think society could handle a 14-day ovulation phase. I don't think I could. Have you heard of post-ovulation clarity? It's a real thing. It's a real thing. Anyway, this phase is where you're probably going to be the most social. You'll likely feel like the best version of yourself during this phase, with many women reporting that they actually feel their most physically attractive during this phase too. Unfortunately, some of us during this phase might have ovulatory pains, which feel like cramps. So, sorry, you will never know peace. This phase is where you get a dramatic rise in estrogen and testosterone. Typically, this is the peak of your energy levels, and it is also the most likely phase in which you're going to get pregnant. So let's be careful what we do with that energy. Here is what your daily routine looks like during your ovulation phase. We are shifting to high energy social commitments to accommodate our more extroverted energy peak. This means more social activities, endurance training, and more social forms of work. It also means deleting your dating apps. It's for your own safety, babe. Diet. Okay, this phase is a little bit tricky in terms of diet. We've produced our eggs. They're ready to be fertilized. And that is gonna make us feel extra social and flirty and bubbly and just glowy all round like an angel. This phase probably puts us at the lowest in terms of our appetite, but girl, you gotta eat. Here is a list of foods to prioritize during this phase. For this stage, fiber and cruciferous veg are smart, but it's equally important to up your intake of zinc and magnesium through eating leafy greens, beans, nuts, and shellfish if you can. I have an allergy, so I shan't be doing that. But oysters are actually nature's highest form of zinc, so glug glug glug. It's important during this phase to emphasize antioxidant-rich foods like berries, citrus fruits, and cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and kale, because these help to support cellular repair and reduce inflammation. Okay, so your energy is at its peak, and this is where the fitness girlies are saying that you should do endurance training. So enjoy that. This is because testosterone levels are at their highest during ovulation, so theoretically you can push yourself harder at the gym. You want to be looking at those long runs, competitive sports, circuit training, weight training, HIIT, boxing, Pilates, swimming, or spin classes during this phase. However, because remember, famously, nothing is ever easy, there is some evidence that when estrogen is high, there is an increased risk of injury. This is because the hormone makes ligaments and tendons more relaxed. For instance, an injury to the knee may be more likely. So this means that you need to make sure that you are doing proper warm-ups and cool-downs during this phase. Do not charge head in to heavy cardio, okay? Look after your body, that's what this is about. Whilst it might make you more prone to injury, estrogen does actually have some benefits, with many people saying that it has a positive effect on your mood. One expert said that this might actually increase your motivation to train. Well, how bloody lovely. Productivity. The hormonal peak of testosterone during this phase can give you outward-focused energy, whilst estrogen can make you feel more energetic and proactive. It's an extroverted time for most people, making it ideal to work in groups and team environments. So this is a great time to schedule important meetings and have tough conversations, because you'll do the conversing more naturally. You'll also look really hot, which is a great time to have a tough conversation. Self-care. Self-care in this phase is focused to meet your social and extroverted needs. For example, scheduling relaxing, fun things to do with your friends. Something to remember here is to be selective with your socialization. Focus on the most meaningful and energizing social interactions, and also make sure to have regular self-check-ins just to see where you're at. You know, your energy is not limitless, although it might feel like it for a few days. The high levels of estrogen, while again are supposed to be good for sleep, might make you feel quite hot, both temperature-wise and literally. You will feel very sexy. But I don't think being really sexy ever stops anyone from sleeping. And shall I ask the audience on that one? I don't know, you'll have to let me know. Being too hot temperature-wise might interfere with your sleep. Your mind might be quite active too, which could make sleeping hard, so give these things a try. Meditation, mindfulness, you could even use Headspace. Click the link in the description down below. You could try sleeping with a window open. You could also try putting Hinge down, babe. Put Hinge down. Put the phone down. Post-ovulation clarity. The luteal phase, day 15 to 28. This is our autumnal luteal phase. This is the longest phase of the cycle. It lasts 10 to 14 days, and it's when the hormones have reached their peak concentration and gradually begin to decrease. To personalize it, it's that point at which you just know your period's coming. You just start getting tired. Things aren't feeling good. You're like, Also, PMS. She is a luteal phase baddie. Yes, she is. She's the reason you start feeling fatigued, anxious, start breaking out, and you get bloated. Yeah, it's not good. Everything about the luteal phase routine is about winding down. It is our longest phase, so this happens gradually rather than all at once. So take your time and start to really pay attention to how you are feeling each day, looking for that hormonal decline. This phase is all about meeting yourself where you are at on that day. Diet. The main thing during this phase is increasing your magnesium and your vitamin B6 to help alleviate your premenstrual symptoms and support better sleep. A high caloric intake during this phase is likely to occur. The girls are hungry, let them eat, but focusing on lean proteins and healthy fats can help maintain your energy levels. During this phase, you want to prioritize these kinds of foods. Also, eat some damn carbs, okay? Eat the carbs. You'll most likely crave sweets, and you know what? Live a little bit, babe. Live a little bit. My personal philosophy is that I don't think you should deprive yourself of things that you are craving or that you want. Something that really helped me to better understand my health was the idea of adding, not subtracting. So I don't take out things when I'm craving them, but I add things that are more nutritionally dense to kind of make sure that I'm still giving myself what I need nutritionally. So yeah, I might eat a whole bag of Maltesers, but you know what? I also had an apple. Champion of health. However, if your sugar cravings are getting a little bit off the charts and you think you're going to need to see a dentist pretty soon, try instead to focus your attention on high fiber carbohydrates, which will help to curb some of those cravings. Exercise. Some people will automatically notice a shift in their exercise tolerance and performance following ovulation. Because you've just had your peak, it's all downhill, babe. that decline is rapid. With one expert saying, workouts like low impact cardio and mat or reformer Pilates are great in the first half of this phase when we still have energy from ovulation. The closer we get to our period, the lower our energy tends to be. So workouts that keep cortisol and inflammation low, like mat Pilates, walking and yoga, are ideal. For others, the week before their period may be when they experience a marked decline in exercise tolerance, along with having more trouble thermoregulating, which means you might get really cold or really hot. It's very annoying. Our bodies retain more water and have more of a difficult time cooling down during this phase, so it is important during this phase to stay hydrated, paying special attention to your electrolyte levels, especially before exercise. Productivity. During this phase, both estrogen and progesterone rise, with progesterone hitting its peak during this phase, but both hormones dramatically fall off towards the end of this phase. Some studies have shown that higher progesterone levels are associated with higher levels of calm, which means that your mind might feel a little bit more sluggish than it did in the weeks prior. This could have an impact on your productivity, especially with symptoms related to PMS starting to kick in towards the end of the phase. So this is your kind of winding down phase. It's important to prioritize your self-care, to take things a little bit slower to match those high progesterone levels, and to try and limit face-to-face time with others, okay? This is your solo time. This is the working from home time. This is the try and avoid talking to people because you might say something you regret time. We've all been there. We've all been there. Use this time to do those lower effort tasks, the things that are slightly easier, like admin, a couple of easy emails, tidying some things up, okay? Don't start new projects this week. It's not going to work out for you. Self-care. The luteal phase might be one of the most stressful phases of the cycle, so really prioritize yourself. Do activities that serve you and try to limit your external stresses. Try to limit stressful environments and stressful people. This transition to menstruation is where your energy levels are going to be at an all-time low. While progesterone enhances slow-wave sleep, disruptions due to premenstrual symptoms are common. The way to get around this is to limit your caffeine intake, maintain consistent sleep routines, incorporate calming rituals, or have a hot bath or shower to help relax your muscles. I genuinely find it hilarious how much time I have spent in my life trying to find camera angles to film myself in the shower whereby you cannot see me naked. It's kind of an absolutely ludicrous thing that I have spent an absurdly large amount of my life doing. And really annoyingly, a lot of people who suffer with PMS or PMDD will also experience insomnia during this phase. So, right, so happy. Everyone's so happy. Dr. Anna Quebec, who is a triple certified OBGYN and author of Menopause, 5 unique eating plans to break through your weight loss plateau and improve mood, sleep, and hot flashes. My God. Dr. Anna, you couldn't have made a shorter book title. Anyway, Dr. Anna says, typically, period insomnia happens during the luteal phase. Both PMS, premenstrual syndrome, and PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, are associated with period insomnia. Taking vitamin C, vitamin B, magnesium, and oats during this time could really help to improve your body's natural production of progesterone. High progesterone levels tend to reduce your cortisol levels and help to support your adrenal glands, which could help you have better sleep. During the 28 days that I did this routine, I saw massive improvements in my overall function during each phase. Part of that, I think, is just because I was actually aware that I was in each phase and I was cutting myself more slack. I felt more consistently calm, productive, and happier during each phase because I felt like I was more aware of what I actually needed as opposed to imposing on myself what I thought I should be doing. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there is no such thing as a scientifically perfect routine for everyone. In fact, these titles are kind of a bit clickbaity because it doesn't exist. A scientifically perfect thing doesn't exist. And even if it did, scientifically perfect does not mean practical or reasonable for an average person to do in a capitalist society. So the one thing I will say to you is that it's incredibly important with videos like this that you don't just take everything as gospel truth. You and your experience is incredibly subjective, which means that you need to be able to adapt parts of this routine or any routine that you see to better serve you. You should not try and fit yourself into a mold of someone else's quote-unquote perfect routine because you have entirely different bodies, entirely different lives, and entirely different experiences. Like, I am 5'9", okay? I'm 175 centimeters tall, which means that I am actually a lot taller than the average woman. This impacts things like how much I need to eat, how much I can lift, or how high I can put my shelves. Routines are supposed to serve you. which is why I made this video. It is so important to prioritize yourself, your health, and your happiness, and know that health and happiness should not be at odds with each other. There were several points in the process of doing this 28-day routine where what was quote-unquote scientifically perfect wasn't what I needed at the time. It wasn't fitting for me. So during the point with my period, I did sit there and eat an entire share bag of peanut M&Ms. Self-care, baby. Did I also lift a bunch of weights that day because balance is key? Yes, but the important thing to know is that mental health is included in quote-unquote scientifically perfect routines. If you need to slightly bend things or change things or try a different way, save it for another day, that's okay too. Let me know if you'd give this routine a go in the comments down below, if you've ever done something like this before, or if you would like to just know more about the data gap. I'm debating making a podcast episode about it on my podcast channel, Slightly Confused with Eleanor Bateman, if you would like to check it out. Also, if you wouldn't mind giving this video a cheeky little thumbs up, maybe share it, maybe give it a like, maybe subscribe if you're not already. Me and the algorithm are at odds once more. We have Le Bouffe, I fear. I post a lot of different content on this channel, and I think because of that, the algorithm doesn't really know what I'm doing, and so it doesn't know who to send my videos to, which means that some of my videos do really well, and some of them don't do well at all. But I think the quality in them is consistently improving. Like, I think I'm getting better at making videos, but the algorithm doesn't know who to show them to. So if you would like to see more videos, dare I say subscribe.